Daddy, chill.
Welcome to the Jacob Wayne Show. I am your Jacob Wayne, and if you read William Strunk Jr. and E.B. White's The Elements of Style, one of the essential elements is my boy Kellen Gibbons. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
Nice.
I didn't know I was styling. Nice.
One of the essential elements.
Uh,
So, what are you sipping on, sir?
I just got plain old good old water, just straight up, just right from the tap, just some water.
I have personally been quite the water slut lately.
It's good stuff.
Let it dribble down my mouth.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
I was gonna get some fresh squeezed OJ, but I didn't grab it before we started. So here we are, drinking water.
If you wanted to grab some, we could just edit this out.
No, it's fine.
Okay. I don't want to get in the way of you and your orange juice. Would you say that you're a slut for orange juice?
Well, maybe.
Sometimes.
I do pay for it.
Yeah, that is true.
So it's like the other way, I guess.
Dominate that orange juice, make it pay for it. All right. Well, anyway, I got a little bit of water and coffee myself. Not really any food stuff I want to get into this week, just because not much has been happening, and I've also had a weird stomach bug and just been dealing with that for a week. So I'll spare you the details, but it's been one of those weeks where food's like a burden.
Oh man,
I'm like, I know this is good, but I'm not even sure if I want. Yeah. So that being said, this is kind of a thick old episode. So we're going to get right into it. I'm trying out a new segment on it. You ready to try it out?
All right, into it. Let's do it.
It's essentially an update of one of our little news type segments we used to do, like weird news or this or that. But it's kind of thought this is a way to do it more in a weekly update sort of fashion. And it's a little more simplified so we can vary it whenever it's relevant. And so this segment's going to be called Bad News, Good News. Here's the drop. Bad news. Good news. Bad news. Good news. And there you go.
I like it.
A little more short than the other music drop, but there you go. So
got the dichotomy.
Yeah. I don't know about you. I'm a bad news first kind of guy. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I just like to get it out of the way. So with that, this one isn't that bad. I'm not trying to depress people that listen to this podcast. So I'll spare you the horrible atrocities that are continuing to happen in Ukraine, other than the fact of just saying it to remind you that, yes, it's still happening. Will Smith did not slap the threat of Russia out of Ukraine. That was something totally different.
Yeah.
So with this one's kind of more of a ponderous bad news, and I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on this. The headline, this is from NPR, Twitter adopts poison pill to block Elon Musk takeover bid. First things first, have you been hearing about this Elon Musk Twitter takeover news?
Yeah, he wants to buy like 20% or something is all it takes to be the major shareholder or something like that.
I guess call the shots or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'll read this real quick. Twitter is trying to stifle Elon Musk for that pursuit of the purchase. And on Friday, the social media company enrolled a defense against Musk's unwelcome takeover bid, introducing what is known as a poison pill to fend off Musk's $43 million acquisition attempt. The maneuver, formerly called the shareholder rights plan, essentially allows current shareholders to acquire more stock in the company at a discount, presenting Musk with an unwelcome pill, meaning his shares would become diluted and his purchase would become more expensive. It would require that Musk
Oh.
negotiate directly with Twitter's board on any purchase attempt. So, yeah, I believe this is not in our notes here, but it's like 14% is what most of them have, and or
Uh,
like on the board anyway. It's like it's not the controlling percentage. I'm not an expert in these sorts of things.
yeah.
So we'll move right along. Musk holds about 9% of Twitter stock, but he has made an offer to buy the company outright. With the poison pill plan now in
Oh.
place, Twitter is preemptively defending itself against the possibility of Musk upping his stake in the company. Now, from a Reuters source, this is why I even thought this was relevant and intriguing, is this is a quote from Musk himself. I think it's very important for there to be an inclusive arena for free speech. And he's talking in reference to Twitter. Musk, a
Uh-huh.
self-described free speech absolutist, has been critical of the social media platform and its policies, and recently ran a poll on Twitter asking users if they believed it adheres to the principle of free speech. More than 70% of the 2 million votes cast said no.
Huh.
After Twitter banned former President Donald Trump over concerns around incitement of violence following last year's US Capitol attack by his supporters, Musk tweeted, "A lot of people are going to be super unhappy with West Coast high tech as the de facto arbiter of free speech if Twitter continues to operate as it has." So it's kind of a little bit to unpack there, but I think the main intriguing part that this implies to me that Elon Musk, from what I've gathered, wants Twitter to be more of like a free for all town hall where you can spread any
Hmm.
information you want. And all
Yeah.
these Twitter restrictions are um, basically getting in the way of free speech. How do you feel about that?
I think free speech is out the window as soon as it involves capitalism. Like, as soon as money's involved, there's no more free speech, anyways. So I don't think it matters on that platform. And I don't want the public forum to be on Twitter. I want people to still have to go outside and like go argue in the town square if they do want to argue anything. That is where the true free speech should lie. I think that placing fake news and stuff, especially when you can buy advertising and get your bad views spread to millions of people just by using money, that's a bad thing. I don't think that should be allowed.
Right. Um, I guess to like try to play the devil's advocate on it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in general, yeah, it boils down to this is a company, so they can do what they like. This isn't the forum for free speech necessarily. It's like it's just a business, it's social media, and they can decide how they want to run it. It doesn't bother me that Facebook says, "Hey, you can't have nudity on our social media platform."
Well,
And it's like, all right, if I want that, I'll go find a lesser known social media outlet that does allow that. But I think that's what raises a bit of the intriguing question, is that he refers to himself as a free speech absolutist. And I think I get really close to that, but it's like that absolutist part that irks me.
yeah,
It's like there's very few absolutes in this world, for one. And I definitely get uncomfortable with anybody who's in a position of power, whether it be corporate or governmental, being an absolutist about anything, because that's
yeah,
just, reeks of fascistic control. But what is interesting is that, fascism, free speech, diametrically opposed, right? But I think
yeah.
you did raise an interesting point that this, at the end of the day, this is a business, And so whatever money's coming in, they can try to be as transparent with people as much as they want, but it is in kind of that weird, interesting, muddy area where it's like the more money and influence you have, the stronger your speech is on Twitter. So it's not like it's equaled out, or, obviously Donald Trump is what's going to get thrown in my face if he decided to come back to this free speech Twitter. And I'm not going to see Jerry from Boulder, Colorado's response to that. But not necessarily that you couldn't. You'd have to go on to like Trump's post or tweet and then go read the responses, which is always a bit of a toxic hellhole.
Oh God, yeah.
Regardless of whether this is a tweet you agree with or not.
Yep.
But that is where I do get a tiny bit stuck and interested to get your thoughts. Is I wish that we lived in a society where people were educated enough to allow Twitter to be that it was just this giant free speech forum where people could be like, oh, Donald Trump is just spewing crazy shit. That's all bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's his right to do that. And that's a bit of a caveat, is should public officials be allowed to post things that endanger the public? I don't think so. And in a way that is controlling the speech of politicians. But in general, they work for us. So
exactly. Yeah.
This is their job that we hired them to do. So if they're doing things that endanger us, we give them like a penalty, a fine, fire them, something. And that's absolutely what Trump did, is he spread dangerous bullshit his whole time, this years before he was president, but especially that 2020, like, holy shit, that was his MVP year for misinformation bullshit.
It's still affecting people.
But yeah, I do think he should have a way to say all his stupid, dangerous bullshit, because we should be strong enough as a society to be able to hear it and reject it and respond, at least within the framework of speech.
He can write a letter to the editor to the Herald Journal. They'll print anything. They'll print this crazy bullshit. They'll let anybody say whatever they want. That's the thing. Like, that's my main point with it. It's like, I think he could write a letter to the editor and say all that stuff, but for some reason,
not to cut you off, but I think that is what he does now. He just puts out a letter from the president, even though he's not. Anyway,
so there you go. He's still getting his word out. I don't think, Twitter has the freedom to not let him use their thing if they want to. That's part of their freedom. So
and there is just a certain, I saw a comparison meme the other day where it was like, man, I wish I could remember who. I think it was David Lynch, the director. Pretty great, weird, unusual guy. And he's like, the way things are going in this world can be a little bit upsetting. I'm going to be donating $500 million to like helping out things that are dealing with the climate and blah, blah, blah. And then it was juxtaposed with Elon Musk, like, I think I might buy Twitter. And it's just like, this guy that's like one of the richest guys, if not the richest guy in the world. I think he has held that position. Bitching about paying taxes and then just playing these games with the market, which some people have thought that's all he's doing here, is just fucking with the numbers to play the stocks. And there is just something creepy about the power that he has. And I don't know. So it does leave me in a kind of a bad news sort of spot where it's like, it's just this rich guy that has way too much power and influence over markets and everything. but yeah, that is an aspect of where I think I wish we could have a just, we don't need to really censor anything on Twitter because there's some stupid shit, but nobody really buys into it in mass, so it's just there. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
And I would go again and say I do think that censorship would hopefully be a later option as opposed to like doing what Facebook does. And I think Instagram and maybe Twitter does it too, but says like, hey, this here is actual a place you can go to get actual facts on this subject if it happens to be something like COVID, like a source of massive misinformation stuff,
Right.
or climate change or stuff.
Yeah.
Just be like, no, this is how it is. We know our algorithm knows this post is about this, so here's where you can go to get scientific facts, which are still valuable, people, just because you don't understand how they work.
Sure. Well, with that, we'll get into the good news. That's actually a pretty good transitional point because the other day I was sitting there on my phone. I've recently kind of switched up my diet, alcohol consumption, random work things have changed. So having a hard time sleeping. Putin, this is still in the bad news area, I guess, threatened some nuclear bullshit on Finland or Sweden if they decided to join join NATO. Not NATO. Yeah, NATO. Sorry.
Huh.
Anyway, so I started doom scrolling on that kind of news, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but the two things that freak me out and concern me more than anything is nuclear proliferation, at least in terms of weaponry.
Uh-huh.
And so humanity's ability to destroy itself through warfare or through
Yeah.
climate change.
Yeah.
So obviously I was just kind of in kind of a fucked up headspace, but I just kind of scrolling through my Reddits, which, Reddit is Reddit.
Indeed.
And there was an environmental one that I follow, and everybody on there is somebody that's more left leaning, somebody probably more adjacent to what I think.
Mm-hmm.
But they were just total like doom and gloom. Like, it's all over. What's the point anyway? We should just fucking kill ourselves. Humanity should be over. And it's just that mopey emo whatever, just give me cat videos and communism. It doesn't matter. The fucking world's gonna be over. Ugh. And it's just like that is the epitome of like the lame, stupid part of the left right now. Is just this fucking doom, I give up, woe is me. And I don't, once again, we've said this endlessly, so no need to really reiterate it, but that small percentage, it doesn't actually reflect what most of us think.
No.
And I would say that you and me more or less are aligned, might disagree on this or that, but in general, climate change is probably a big deal to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you say that you're a communist?
I would just say that, no.
Yeah. I've had friends that go hardcore into that.
Uh-huh.
And I've tried to like hear it out, just like I've tried to hear out libertarianism and compassionate conservatism or any of the other ones you can think of. And man, I'm not going to call out any names, but I've heard some really stupid shit from my friends that say that, no, yeah, like hammer and sickle, baby. Stalin wasn't that bad. You're like, oh, holy shit. Like, shut the fuck up. So let's play around in reality and try to not be biased. Like, yeah, there is some stupid, way too far left shit in the general liberal millennial populace. But that being said, tell me if you agree with this. We've talked on this show a lot about it, but it helps to reiterate. The solution is some kind of mixture of socialism, free market capitalism, and maybe, I don't know, science and some new good ideas.
Yeah.
human behaviorism
Hmm.
and reactions to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
So that kind of leads me into this good news segment and climate change specifically. Because what I'll say to start this off is I feel like the true battle in when it comes to humanity, actually, in general, throughout history, it's morphed and changed, but it's the fight against government tyranny and the fight against corporate tyranny. And it's kind of like a three-way thing
Hmm.
where corporatism tries to take over government and government kind of tries to take over free money, innovation, free market, capitalists and innovators and titans of industry, if you will.
Yeah.
And both of them are happy to have as much power as they can and use it on us,
Yeah.
the proletariat, as communism would say. But that brought me to another thing that we've talked about on this podcast before, which is the difference between equity and equality, which, because it's always, we were trying to break down the concept of, well, one thing that doesn't work about communism is everybody gets the exact same thing no matter what, and how that doesn't work. But I'm going to
Yeah.
throw this up on the screen for our video watchers, and I'll read you the brief overlay of what it says, though, for our listeners. And this breaks it up into four kind of separate things that are a bit of a process.
Yeah.
First, you have inequality. And in this picture, you have a tilted tree to the left. And on the tilted side, there's more apples in the tree. One kid's on the one side, another kid's on the other. So one kid is right underneath the tilted tree with the more abundant fruit, and it falls right into his hands. And the kid's on the other side of the tree, it's higher up, less fruit, and he's just sitting there waiting for an apple to drop into his hands. That's just inequality, right?
Yep.
Then you get equity, which is, essentially things that identify and address, well, what is, let's read this a little more specifically. Sorry, folks. Equity is not only dividing resources fairly and equally, but also factoring in differences amongst people. Differences such as race and socioeconomic status that would require different support to ensure the same opportunity of success. This can be shown in the image below by the different height of the ladders. The kid on the right has a taller ladder because the tree is higher on his side, whereas the other boy has a shorter ladder because he has a shorter distance to reach to gather apples. They have different size ladders to make sure they are both able to pick the apples. So they've both been given ladders, different size ladders. That's equity. Equality would be the same size ladder given to both boys, and they're right back at inequality.
Yeah.
Where now the one kid on the left side can get the fruit even easier, but even though the one on the other side has been lifted up, it's still out of his reach, and there's still not fruit growing on that side as much. And that's where it gets into justice, where they have built an apparatus in order to prop up the tree to have more light distribution, to grow fruit more balanced on the plant, thus balancing out the tree, making it so both kids can have the same size ladder to get the same amount of fruit. And that's justice. Justice is
Man.
long-term equity. It looks to create equity in systems as well as individuals. Justice can take equity one step further by fixing the systems in a way that leads to long-term, sustainable, equitable access for generations to come. As seen in the image, both kids are given the same size ladder, but instead of giving them different size ladders, they give added support to ensure both are able to access the apples. And
Yeah.
that leads right into the good news. Now, what was the video I sent you? I always forget how to pronounce the channel.
Kurz gesagt. Kurz
Kurzgesagt,
gasped.
right?
Yeah.
And what's the title?
We will fix climate change.
Say that again.
We will fix climate change.
Oh shit. I don't know, man. It's just fucking over, dude. It's just fucking this no.
Look at,
Uh,
watch this cat push stuff off a table.
yeah, it's just over, dude. Whatever. Why care? Why give a shit? But the video, well, we could dive into that video if we were climate scientists or
Mm-hmm.
policymakers and really nitpick it. But in general, it's a really good video. I highly recommend it. So search "We Will Fix Climate Change" and it's a
K, and it'll
little,
pop up.
yeah, it's a little cartoon of like little Angry Bird looking type animation.
If you, he has all his videos are good. All those videos are awesome. I've
Right.
seen a few of them. They're great.
But what I like about that is that, well, first things first, how far did you get into the video?
I watched like the first like segment.
And what
Talking,
would you say was your impression? What did
well,
they
it's
go over?
he was just saying how like this is the level that doom and gloom of climate change was predicted to be, and we're already gonna not get there. And hope if we keep pushing for climate change, we could get much lower if we could, we actually are turning it around. So,
Okay, the way that broke down within that, though, which I found interesting, is that we've already missed the 1.5 temperature or like degree increase.
the
Like,
Paris thing, yeah.
that's already over. We fucked that up. That's gonna
Uh-huh.
happen. And a lot of people are like, "Whoa, we didn't do that, so fuck, it's over. We don't care. We didn't do anything." And that's where the misinformation starts to get in because he breaks it down, and I'll maybe fuck up the numbers a little, but
Yeah.
that's why you should go watch the video. Is we're pretty much on track for a 2-degree increase in temperature,
Uh-huh.
which is still pretty damn bad. It'll fuck up ecosystems, levels of the ocean, which will displace peoples, creating an even bigger refugee crisis. And clearly, countries that have better positions of power with money and resources don't seem to like refugees too much, which is fucking unfortunate.
Yep.
Just as much as Europe's willing to take in Ukrainian refugees, there's already in the news that the UK is going to send people back to Rwanda, or maybe they're not even from there, but they're going to send refugees to Rwanda. I don't know the details on that.
Wow.
So there's clearly a racist element to the whole refugee issue, and that's just going to get worse with climate change. So already in this video, it's like, yes, this is going to get worse. But then they break it down to the point where 3%, this is kind of what it's going to look like. And this is how even more displaced things will be. But humanity is adaptive. They're going to be fine. And you would have to get up to like a 4-degree, like where it really starts to become like extinction level event type increase.
Uh-huh.
But even at 4, people would probably survive. It would just be the unacceptable catastrophe that we all fear. And, of course, if you kept going up, there's a point where you just couldn't even live on the planet. But even that breakdown of the different degree increases was like, my doom scrolliness kind of like came off a little bit. And
Yeah.
so what they start to break down is just we were like steamrolling over the last decade or last 2 decades towards this like catastrophic I'm trying to think of the word. Going to that 4-degree number. But now scientists are already saying that we probably won't hit that because of all the innovation and different developments within renewable resources, carbon capture, smarter grid systems, weatherizing homes more properly, so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
one of the best elements about it was that it's finally gotten to a point where businesses and governments can make profit and reduce their emissions, which I think
Yeah.
is one of the biggest things ever, and kind of what we're going to get
Uh-huh.
into a little bit here. is, I think, more than anything, this government power, corporate power. Obviously, those two powers are interwoven, but you tell them, hey, you can still make money and reduce emissions now.
Yeah.
That's fucking huge because we know they're going to be selfish.
Oh, big time.
And so we'll dive into that a little bit more, but I'm going to read these two bits of good news. The headline is for the first time, wind power eclipsed both coal and nuclear in the U.S. This is reported by NPR.
Woo.
Wind power in the United States reached a new milestone last month. On March 29th, wind turbines produced more electricity than coal and nuclear. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, or EIA, an agency that collects energy statistics for the government, says in the past, wind-powered electricity has gone beyond coal and nuclear on separate days, but this was the first time wind surpassed both on the same day. Natural gas is still the largest source of electricity generation in the country. The EIA notes that in the spring and fall months, nuclear and coal generators reduce their output because demand tends to be lower, which could contribute to why wind turbines produce more electricity that day. But wind taking the number 2 spot may be short-lived. The agency says electricity generation from wind on a monthly basis has been lower than natural gas, coal, and nuclear generation. And according to the EIA projections, wind is not expected to surpass any other method in any month of 2022 or 2023. One other little bit of good news, though, is solar panels that can generate electricity at night have been developed at Stanford.
Ooh.
So a team of engineers at Stanford University have developed a solar cell that can generate some electricity at night. The device incorporates a thermoelectric generator, which can pull electricity from the small difference in temperature between the ambient air and the solar cell itself. Our approach can provide nighttime standby lighting and power in off-grid and mini-grid applications where solar cell installations are gaining popularity. And I just thought this was a good little point to add to all of this. As the war continues in Ukraine, Abigail Ross Hopper, president and CEO of Solar Energy Industries Association, corporate power, right? The National Trade Association for the Solar Industry told CNBC that investing in energy alternatives is important. In the face of global supply uncertainty, we must ramp up clean energy production and eliminate our reliance on hostile nations for our energy needs, the CEO said. So clearly, already right now within politics and business, like we are in the middle of like a war. That's not a Some countries are actually in the physical war, but we're in the war of industry and policy. And it's global.
Yep.
And it is intriguing that her saying we must ramp up clean energy production and eliminate our reliance on hostile nations for our energy needs. I'm going to underline eliminate our reliance on hostile nations for our energy needs. Have you heard that somewhere before?
Yeah.
Where?
The GOP talking point right there.
Fucking George Bush shit, right?
Yep.
We got to start drilling here so we
In
can have
Utah.
our own oil so we don't have to listen to the axis of evil.
Yep.
But this is from a CEO flipped, using clean energy as a way to combat hostile nations in our energy needs. And I've said this before, but I absolutely think like that is the way that we should engage with climate change and clean energy, is that we should maybe be a little bit like, yeah, I thought this was America. Clean air? I thought this was America. America's the best, #1. Woo!
Yeah.
And it's just like, be the best at, the arms race in the Cold War. Make it a green race between powerful nations. And like, how is that bad? Now, within the video, they do point out where that's been brought up, like putting on all these regulations of how much you can emit carbon and this and that. Like, people have felt that that's a way of having the equality, but not equity or justice, because they're expecting a smaller nation to keep up and that hurts their development, while these larger countries are able to have those restrictions and keep making profit.
Yeah.
So what it all boils down to is essentially that all these tiny little systems, it's about turning them into something that can be profitable to essentially engage with the people that only give a fuck about profit, and how to incentivize not only making that profitable, but basically, to go back to that image, propping up the tree to fix the way the tree is growing, to create better fruit distribution.
Yeah.
And making sure everybody has the same access to that fruit, or in this case, the natural resources of our planet, which are not a constant. It's finite, and we need to learn how to be more sustainable. But you can create sustainability and profitability, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we just have to, I think the Wayne way is that's where people have the most power. I think that's why all the news about climate change and stuff is, they kind of have to make it all bad to kind of get people to pay attention and shift the thing. It's the same thing with news outlets now. They like, bad news makes you click on it. You want to look at it. So people gotta spend their money and spend their clicks right, and buy stuff like, buy things that are made out of post-consumer recycled material and all that good stuff.
Or can be fixed, like older cars where you could have the same car and fix it. Like, rather than, what is that? I always forget the term. It's like production. It's produced in a way to be useless in like 2 or 3 years.
Oh yeah, it's like everything is the throwaway is one term for it, but yeah, that's totally how everything's going. Cell phones and stuff, it's crazy.
It's like integrated obsoletism or something like that.
Yeah.
That does raise two interesting points too within the video that you should look up, which I think we should just call this episode "We Will Fix Climate Change."
Yeah.
And so then what? It's just like, no, we won't. They're like, whatever. It might get us some clicks, and then it might lead people to that video too.
There you go.
And it'd be funny if they sued us. Like, fuck you. It's just like, okay.
You can't.
Yeah.
Just don't capitalize. We will.
No, I'm going to.
Okay. Underline too.
But sorry. The one element of that video that I liked is that they were touching on, I think that was one part. We already talked about that. So did you get to the part where they were talking about basically everybody in industry that is still trying to push the old ways of using carbon and energy? Is that their process of combating climate change information? Did you get to that part? Okay, so they broke it down into 4 phases, which the first phase is to ignore that climate change exists. They already did that. Then it morphs into, well, climate change is real, but I'm not so sure it's man-made or caused by man. That's phase 2. Phase 3 is, well, it's caused by men, but it's already, like, we're not sure the best way to handle it, or if there is even a way to handle it, so on and so forth. And now we're in phase 4, where they're basically creating the doom scroll.
Yeah.
Of basically weaponized gloominess.
Yeah.
To the point where they're like, well, climate change has happened. It's already over. You might as well just keep guzzling gas.
Yep.
And I think that's a good way to wrap that all up.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I was getting caught up in that. And I think that is like a thing that is beyond left-right stuff. It's easy to get sucked into like, fuck, we are so fucked right now. And and I think one of the reasons that it is a little bit beyond the left right is because it does seem to be more of a corporate thing. And it's a corporate tactic to basically keep buying our shit. But they're desperate.
They're
Shit's
doing really
changing
good.
and they're trying to and they're trying to probably take their investments into green energy while still saying it's kind of bullshit and you should still consume a bunch of gas. Get a gas guzzler, things like that.
Yeah.
And so
And
don't get lost in the doom.
Exactly. They like you in the doom because most companies are doing great right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because
better
of that.
than ever. So why are we hurting?
Because
Inflation
we buy
isn't
stuff.
that bad.
Because we buy stuff when we hurting.
But the jobs report has never been better, Kellen. Like, why would we be bothered by any of this?
Exactly.
So just know when you're being manipulated.
Which is all the time.
That goes
for
left or right. And there's absolutely people on either ends of that do try to manipulate you.
If you're using an app that you didn't pay money for, it's manipulating you.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, all right. That was we're not going to be able to really go off on it like that all the time, but luckily I had to kind of sit and wait for a phone interview today, so I was able to compile. I'll try my best to kind of do that more often, but we'll still be able to do bad news, good news in a more casual light if it's just a headline or something.
Yeah.
But with that, let's jump into the other segments and really wrap this puppy up. We'll kind of go a little faster, at a faster clip, except for music talk, which we're still going to play the full thing. All right. New releases. This is stand-up comedy, but I'll throw it into the music talk. There's a new album by Roy Wood Jr., who's a really good stand-up comedian. I'm excited to listen to that. I haven't listened to it yet. And a new record by Salt, a band I've talked about before, spelled SAULT, called Air. I think we talked about this, but they were that band that had the little album called 9 that was up on streaming for 99 days. And then they took it down forever.
Oh, yeah.
So then people would, share the audio. And if they throw it up on YouTube, they're not going to give a fuck. But it's like a way of promoting your music and spreading it. Just a new kind of innovative way. Yeah. This one, I don't think operates under any kind of thing quite like that, other than you can pay a suggested price, like whatever you want for the digital, but then there is like vinyl, CD, this and that. The 9 album did have a vinyl as well, which I hope to buy one day, but I haven't gotten a chance to listen to this yet. But just their approach to things and their general aesthetic and songs, I dig them.
Nice.
And that's why I think they get shouted out by Questlove and dudes like that. And I think technically people still don't know who they are. They just know that they're in the UK. So it's like, could be like this artist collective or musician collective or something like that.
Yeah.
And a new album from a band that's kind of fun. Can be a little cheesy, but the band Dub War. just released another song for an upcoming album, I think, called War in a Babylon. And it's essentially
Nice.
reggae metal.
Huh.
So if that intrigues you, it does that's fun. They mix it in kind of a unique way, but sometimes that can be a bit cheesy.
Yeah, it could go. It could go or not go.
So maybe with that full album release, we can do an album in it. But
Yeah.
any other things on the music front? Do you have any shows coming up, new releases,
Um,
other albums to
covered
shout
any
out?
covered any new releases off the top of my head? I myself am starting up the SpongeBob musical. So I have my
Hmm.
first rehearsals for that in a couple hours, and off we go. So
Playing guitar for the SpongeBob musical. Where's
yeah,
that going to be? In Salt Lake City or?
no, it's in Logan. It's at the
Oh,
main theater in Logan. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's
it'll
kind
be
of something I never thought I'd hear.
it's
But
quite
it makes
the
sense. It's like people love SpongeBob.
yeah. I can't believe they made a Mean Girls musical. That's the one that gets me. Uh, but
Oh man.
and the SpongeBob one is way different. You know, a lot weirder than I thought it was going to be. Like not in the way like you think it's going to be weird. You think it's going to be a guy in a sponge costume singing the songs, but
Hmm.
it's it's good and the music is fun. They got some pretty interesting artists to help write the tunes, so they're some fun guitar parts.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that as a transition unless you got more music stuff.
Nope, I'm good.
Because that leads me right into chatting movies. Chatting movies. All right. What is the SpongeBob musical story based on? Is it the SpongeBob movie or is it just random episodes
No,
or
it's like it's actually like kind of like what we've been talking about. The world's gonna end. Bikini
oh,
Bottom's gonna die.
oh
And
no.
they're like, no, it's not. And then they go and climb Mount Humongous and save the day.
Hell yeah. Well,
Yeah.
perfect. That did lead me to this and why we're in the movie section now is have you seen any of those I guess articles or clips of like high school students like starting to adapt like Alien to the
Yeah, yeah.
stage? I'm really into that and I like
Uh-huh.
it. And I was reading one where it's like somebody should adapt The Thing, like John Carpenter's The Thing, to stage.
Oh.
And I'm like, all these little ways that you could take old movies and shows and whatever, turn them into musicals, turn them into stage productions. I mean, I guess they've probably been doing it for a while. There was that Monty Python one. What was that called?
Spam a lot.
Spamalot. And that's essentially just what is it? Brain fart.
The Holy
The
Grail.
the Holy Grail, yeah.
Yeah.
Turned into which I
Yeah.
guess that had music too. It's been a while.
Yeah, not quite as much.
But then they kind of that's essentially all Spamalot is, right?
Yeah, it's a
Is an
full-on
adjustment to that.
musical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They do a whole parts that didn't have songs in the movie have songs like the Bring Out Your Dead has the whole song.
Yeah.
It's fun.
We've talked about making a musical before,
Yeah.
and who knows if we'll ever be
We
able
had a
to. But maybe that's a way to like ease into it and learn a little
uh
is taking something like Alien or The Thing and turning it into a musical.
there you go. Practice. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That is intriguing though. But anyway, that was just a good segue and you guys should look that up like Alien high
Do
school
Alien.
stage production or
There
something
you
like
go.
that.
Do it.
Have you watched any movies recently that's worth talking about?
Um, let's see. I don't think I got to a movie lately. I've been watching Blackadder. It's
Mm,
this
yeah, it's a
really
good
old.
show.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Rowan
Good.
Atkinson.
Yep. Early Rowan.
Mr. Bean, for those that don't know.
Yep. It's hilarious. It's on Hulu. So
Hulu, man. I need the ad-free Hulu, but I can't pay for any more of that stuff. I finally watched Spider-Man No Way Home.
Nice.
That was I think it sits at like the third highest grossing film of all time. Highest grossing Marvel movie. No, I thought Endgame is, sorry. But it's part of that whole MCU Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the weird crossover with Sony having the rights to Spider-Man. So they used it as a way to like plug in all the Spider-Mans from like Tobey, spoiler alert, put in all the Spider-Mans and the old Spider-Man villains and throw them all in a movie together and jumble it up. And I think they should change the title to Spider-Man Cry All the Way Home, because there are emotional beats that hit and really work. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah. It's like there's like a part where all the Spider-Mans are hanging out and they're like, man, I always wished I had brothers, and this is kind of like that. And like I was like, oh yeah, he was always like a lonely kid, and then that's sweet. So there are like genuinely like nice moments. That being said, there's so many drawn out, tearful, this is over, isn't it? Oh my god. It's really whiplash between really absurd jokes and like, you wouldn't be joking like that with this shit happening. And that's kind of the issue with a lot of Marvel these days, is I like them, I enjoy them, but they are becoming like almost like watching The Simpsons. You're just like, those are jokes, hell yeah, and there's the third act crazy action scene, and yep, everybody just throw in all the characters, fan service, and blah blah blah. So there is a certain cynicism in me that makes it like, this is kind of shitty. But on the flip side, there is me that just can kick back, enjoy another Simpsons episode, and be like, whatever, it's funny. And then there's enough emotionality to it, which is almost like meta at this point. The emotions of it are more that you're just like, oh wow, that was my Spider-Man when I was younger, and he's interacting with the new one, and kids are into the new one, and we're all a big community, and touches on things like time moving on, and you got to let go, and you got to do the good thing even though this villain fucking murdered your aunt. Sorry. Spoiler alert, Aunt May dies, which was the most offensive fucking thing in the movie to me, because Aunt May is played by Marissa Tomei in the new one, and you fucking hear me, you do not kill Marissa Tomei.
Not cool.
Fucking not cool. So with that, I think we're just going to wrap up movie talk and get into this day in history.
Indeed.
All right. No drop for that. So we'll have to find a nice little mini one.
Yeah.
What's today?
Let's see. It is April 15th, 2022.
Okay, but this day in history,
Leonardo da Vinci's birthday.
I was unprepared, sorry. There you go.
Yeah. And also the Titanic sank.
But that's not a good air horn. That's the thing freaking out. It's like if Titanic was a Looney Tune. And it was like, I was going to ask you on the Leonardo da Vinci, he was like a polymath, like a guy that was skilled at so many things. Like, do we have to just keep hitting the air horn for each thing
all the things he did? Yeah.
And I'll
artist, engineer, scientist. Yep. Oh man. So also today, this is when the Notre Dame caught fire in Paris. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was 2019.
28 years ago.
2013.
Well, we all know why that was on fire.
666, the mark of the beast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also on this day was that the 2 homemade bombs were detonated at the Boston Marathon.
Daddy, chill.
Killed 3 people, wounded 260, which is
What the
kinda
hell
crazy.
is even that?
Fuck that.
Yep.
And I mean, that's some bad news too, but we won't go over that as the recent shooter in New York. Still all
Yeah.
that sad bullshit still happening.
Yep, indeed.
Gotta keep being the good though.
All right. 2003, George W. said we won the war in Iraq.
Oh, we need a really good laugh. Just oh, okay, I got one.
Oh, wow.
That's
There you go,
the hit
perfect.
of him being wrong.
Yeah.
Fucking ass.
Yep.
And yeah, Condoleezza Rice.
She was abusive to the staff.
Okay.
1989 in Sheffield, England, there was a soccer game. There was like a crush of people that 96 people died, hundreds of injuries, and they blamed on police mistakes.
Wow.
Ah, the first.
Wait, we gotta go back. We gotta go back a little bit with that George Bush thing. I got one. This is kind of fucked up, but do you remember Guantanamo Bay?
Yeah,
Like after the war was over and just all that horrible shit happened.
yeah.
The one time they were bringing in a new prisoner and they were like,
Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
they just threw him in there with whoever because they didn't do any like proper checks. Fucking
Yeah.
assholes. Anyway, sorry.
Let's see, 1955, the first McDonald's opened. Ooh.
Yeah.
Jackie Robinson played his first major league game.
Hell yeah.
And the Rand McNally Auto Chum.
Auto Chub.
Auto Chum
It's giving me
was
an Auto Chub.
released. It was their first atlas for cars, but they called it an Auto Chum, which seems like a
Chum or Chub?
chum with an M.
Oh.
Chum, like your auto buddy, but
Hey, whether it's a chub or a chum, I'm getting one right now.
yeah.
And for anybody offended by that Guantanamo Bay thing I just said,
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
basically.
People getting offended by the truth are fun, right?
Yeah. I thought that was a really tasteful way of using that drop. I was like, oh shit, perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Any other this day in histories?
That was all of them.
All right. I think this is something we need to do. I miss the classical music, like just being underneath this day in history. So we're gonna have to find one that, you know, definitely it's like, yep, that's public domain. It's all good. And then maybe even use it as like the beginning drop into it.
Yeah.
And then if it comes up and it's like, who is that? We can turn it off and just throw up the person worth bringing up.
There you
Classical music. But hell yeah, man, that was a good episode.
go. Indeed.
Nice and long and
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
all right. I'll talk to you next time, buddy.
That sounds good. Y'all have a pleasant evening and week and all that.
Hell yeah. Ta-ta! Thank you for listening to The Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fakoshka@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh,
I'll